There's this fact that I love that I read somewhere once, that one of the things that's contributed to Homo sapiens' success as a species is our lack of body hair. That our hairlessness, our nakedness, combined with our invention of clothing, gives us the ability to modulate our body temperature and thus be able to survive in any climate we choose. And now we've evolved to the point where we can't survive without clothing, and it's more than just a utility. Now it's a communication. Everything that we choose to put on is a narrative, a story about where we've been, what we're doing, who we want to be. I was a lonely kid. I didn't have an easy time finding friends to play with, and I ended up making a lot of my own play. I made a lot of my own toys. And it began with ice cream. There was a Baskin-Robbins in my hometown, and they served ice cream from behind the counter in these giant 5-gallon cardboard tubs. And someone told me, I was 8 years old, someone told me that when they were done with those tubs, they washed them out and they kept them in the back, and if you asked, they would give you one. It took me a couple of weeks to work up the courage, but I did, and they did. They gave me one. I went home with this beautiful cardboard tub. And I was trying to figure out what I could do with this exotic material, metal ring, top and bottom. And I started turning it over in my head. And I realized, wait a minute, my head actually fits inside this thing. I cut a hole out, I put some acetate in there, and I made myself a space helmet. I needed a place to wear the space helmet, so I found a refrigerator box a couple blocks from home. I pushed it home, and in my parents'
We are stealing nature from our children. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that we are destroying nature that they will have wanted us to preserve, although that's unfortunately also the case. What I mean here is that we started to define nature in a way that's so purist and so strict that under the definition we're creating for ourselves, there won't be any nature left for our children when they're adults. But there's a fix for this. So let me explain. Right now, humans use half of the world to live, to grow their crops and their timber, to pasture their animals. If you added up all the human beings, we would weigh 10 times as much as all the wild mammals put together. We cut roads through the forest. We have added little plastic particles to the sand on ocean beaches. We've changed the chemistry of the soil with our artificial fertilizers. And of course, we've changed the chemistry of the air. So when you take your next breath, you'll be breathing in 42% more carbon dioxide than if you were breathing in 1750. So all of these changes, and many others, have come to be kind of lumped together under this rubric of the Anthropocene. And this is a term that some geologists are suggesting we should give to our current epoch, given how pervasive human influence has been over it. Now, it's still just a proposed epoch, but I think it's a helpful way to think about the magnitude of human influence on the planet. So where does this put nature? What counts as nature in a world where everything is influenced by humans? So 25 years ago, environmental writer Bill McKibben said that because nature was a thing apart from man, and because climate change meant that every centimeter of the Earth was altered by man, then nature was over. In fact, he called his book The End of Nature.
Imagine you are a part of a crew of astronauts traveling to Mars or some distant planet. The travel time could take a year or even longer. The space on board and the resources would be limited. So you and the crew would have to figure out how to produce food with minimal inputs. What if you could bring with you just a few packets of seeds and grow crops in a matter of hours? And what if those crops would then make more seeds, enabling you to feed the entire crew with just those few packets of seeds for the duration of the trip? Well, the scientists at NASA actually figured out a way to do this. What they came up was actually quite interesting, and it involved microorganisms, which are single-celled organisms. And they also used hydrogen from water. The types of microbes that they used were called hydrogenotrophs. And with these hydrogenotrophs, you could create a virtuous carbon cycle that would sustain life on board a spacecraft. Astronauts would breathe out carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide would then be captured by the microbes and converted into a nutritious carbon-rich crop. The astronauts would then eat that carbon-rich crop and exhale the carbon out in the form of carbon dioxide, which would then be captured by the microbes to create a nutritious crop, which then would be exhaled in the form of carbon dioxide by the astronauts. So in this way, a closed-loop carbon cycle is created.